we should start. Today I get to realize how late Cape Townians are. And I think the more laid back they are, we kind of continue waiting for them as much as we can. So we'll start the program. Just for house rules, ablution facilities for that nature call, that when it calls, you have to answer. They are on that side towards the back, the ladies on the right and the gents on the left. And we'll just fly through our conversation today. It should be very interesting. And just to do our welcoming, before I do the welcome myself, and we can't get, and remember, Cape Townians are warm people, so when a speaker comes here, we expect to hear that warmness. All right, so can you please give a warm round of applause for Mr. John Peters, who is the Chief Director of Economic Enablement in the Western Cape Government.
Okay, morning everyone. Morning. Hope you all well. Alles okay? Okay, I say. Nee, alles like realize. Yeah, look, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, but also thank you very much for the partners for agreeing to partner in this very important issue of co-ops and the fishing industry. I'd just like to, as part of the welcome, maybe talk on three issues very quickly. And this is yeah. So, but first of all, I mean, from my side, a very warm welcome to Rory Voller, Advocate Rory Voller of the CIPC. I don't think Rudy can recall me, but I can remember meeting him years ago when he just started after the lady, can't remember her name now. There we go, Esther Ludwig. There we go. Right. I can remember meeting him then. We were both very much younger. Okay. Okay. And then Zodwa Velman of Oceano. And then also Abu Ile of the Abu Dhabi ICT for Fisheries. That's an interesting name. Which he's not. Okay. He's in a joint virtually. Thank you very much. So welcome to them. And also importantly, welcome to you guys. Because without you, this is not possible. Right. Just maybe some issues or some, how can I say, point on the importance of the fishing industry. Now, I come from the community, and I was born in a place called Q-Town. If you know the place called Q-Town, and then we moved to a place called Silvertown, which is if your parents earn a little bit more, then you go to Silvertown. It was a little bit less, you go to Bridgetown. Okay, so we're in Silvertown, right? So you move from Q-Town, from the blocker, opposite the stadium. We live in the block there, and then you move over to Silvertown. And the fond memories of living in that area was the fish guy, with the fish. I don't know if you can remember the fish cart, the guys who come with a horse and cart. And my mother used to say, no, it's snook. No, it's stockfish. Okay, kids call it now, what do you call it? Hike. Which stockfish, right? And they used to blow in a certain way, and somehow they knew, my mother would know what type of fish has been sold there, right? If you go to, we would go to Athlone, John Road, you would see the guy selling snook there, So fishing always for my community, for communities in the Western Cape or in Cape Town, was essential to the upbringing. It was essential to the fabric of society. It was also a rich source of food, of protein. Okay, my father always used to say, eat your fish, and you can become clever. So eat a lot of fish, my boy. And I mean, he gave me a lot of fish because it gives you brain food and stuff like that. So anyway, that was the background to it. I think as things went on, the fish didn't diminish as a contributor to putting food on the table. My good friend there, John, said, it's about putting food on the table. But we also ask ourselves, isn't it maybe just a little bit more than just putting food on the table? Isn't it a sort of source of building wealth for the community? So many, if you look at our other communities, wealth has been built on mining. You build up and you move on and you do other stuff. The same thing should be happening with regard to fishery. fisheries, right? So I think what we must realize, all of us must realize, and even more government must realize, is that fishing is an important part, not only in terms of putting food on the table, but in also growing wealth, okay, in growing communities. So that's an important part, right? Then maybe just to relate, and I'll be very brutally honest with my experience with co-ops. I can tell you now, I was never a fan of co-ops, right? Why? Because the co-ops that I've experienced almost always fail. They fail for different reasons. One of the main reasons was the governance. And what we tended to do as government, seriously, we had this concept that co-ops will solve everyone's problem. So what we did was we forced people together to work together. It just didn't work. If the fabric of society is not the same, it's not going to work. So in the Western Cape, now I talk really guarded about this one, there are successes. We found situations where, because these co-ops are almost a gemaakte band, I don't even know what a gemaakte band is, like Spice Girls, there we go, it's a good one, was a gemaakte band. They put people together and they said, right, they didn't go very, very long, like ABBA in my days, where they went for years because they naturally got together. So what you found was that these co-ops didn't last long. They would access the grant or the funding that's made available, and then things would just fall apart, right? I must also add, there was one very good example that I came across when I did a site visit in Oudtshoorn. It was Klein Karoo Co-operative. There were 5 guys. And if ever there were different people, those were different people. And I was just intrigued because they were in a very, very delicate, fragile, I want to call it, not hostile, but risky market. So what they did was, those of you in ostriches, if you farm ostriches, they sell it, then it's 4 price boerdery. But if you farm with small ostriches, then it's half strips, 4 and half anyway. So what they did was, they went into the risky part the commercial farmers didn't want to do. And what was that? That was raising the chicks from that height to that height, because that is where you get highest mortality. So they put together a co-op that looked at that very market. So they would have a situation where they would rear those little chicks, but because they were very hands-on, they had very low fatalities. So there was a high rate of them. And then what would happen is it would just be sold onto the commercial farmer, who would then take it onto the thing, right? It became so good that they afterwards started developing their own farming in terms of the false trace, the real big bird, right? So that was an example of a really good co-op. And when I asked them, now I say they were very diverse, because they were from different parts, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and I think Mpumalanga, one of the three. And when I asked the one guy, the young guy was actually sort of the co-ops, everyone is the same. They were very clear, we actually not the same, we have an equal say, but he's the boss. I said, but then traditionally, the boss is in young. No. He knows technical part, he knows how to manage. I know how to breed these chicks. I know how to look after them. I know this. And when I asked them, because I wanted to obviously help, right? So I gave them, it was like, it was really cheap. It was under 50,000 at them. It was simple stuff. Shade cloths, baths for the, for the feeding, for the water. They can drink it, So all those things, you get to have it different. It was less than 50,000. And I, from government, had to ask him for certain paperwork. They could produce it. It was not elaborate. It wasn't fancy Excel sheets. But just in terms of their paperwork, I love the basic stuff there. I could look at it and would say, okay, that thing was, I don't know if that was a problem that time, but anyway. But the basic stuff they had there. The books they had, the oldest guy could precisely understand what was happening in their books. It wasn't as if the main guy is sort of going figures around there and making this out, right? It wasn't okay. So that was an example I thought she was really working, where the key parts of it was good governance, good management, and good connections with the various co-op members, right? And then sometimes I myself, when someone said, John was saying there was one co-op, 254 people. I think, how do you manage an organization such as that? But probably you can do it, but it just becomes very, very difficult. I think for my side, my experience with co-ops has been on the one end not good. On the other end, I see ones that are very, very successful. Almost key elements that make them successful. Good governance. Also, the guy sort of in charge knows where to tap government resources, knows how to work with government resources, knows how to put in proposals. It's about that, and knows what the business is about. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a sole proprietor, a partnership, or a CC, we don't need CCs anymore, a private company, you need to have a viable business. Forget about your format. It doesn't matter what your format of the business is. You need to have a viable business. Do you have a market? Do you know how to do business? So I think that's I mean, I'm talking now from the heart with regard to my experiences, but I'm also very encouraged because there's a co-op that we're going to look at helping in Overberg, in Overstrand, okay, with a local economic development guy there, also with PSA, Productivity South Africa, and look how we can help that co-op, also the fishing co-op. Then I think the last part of what I don't want to steal from the other member partners, but I think what my appeal to my colleagues in government is that if we think that whatever we bring in individually is the silver bullet, it's not. We're working with small business, especially businesses from disadvantaged areas. You need to have a consolidated overall approach. You cannot think that I come here and I've got money, it's going to solve the problem. I need to be connected with someone who provides non-financial assistance. I need some leadership. Putting a package together is far more impactful than just saying, you know what, I had a workshop and 200 people attended that workshop and here we go. And just on that, I was talking to my team and sent them a strongly worded WhatsApp this morning. Where at our audit committee yesterday, right? Now the audit committee is sort of oversight for our department. We shared it with someone here. Right? We had to report on a certain project, right? We reported on it, and it was nice, very nice. 10 workshops, And then the question from the audit committee, which was also a question from our standing committee, so what? At all these workshops, what came out of it? Now, as government officials, we think, yeah, but we had the workshop. Yeah, but I mean, what came out of it? What was the end? What was the end in mind, or is the workshop the end in itself? So I look at these things and I tell myself, you know, if I'm going to have to report, the crappy part of this is you don't report now, you report in a year's time. And it's the time you forgot about what's happening, right? If I have to report, I have to look at, first of all, the intervention that I'm busy with, right? And secondly, am I tracking the success of it? So I said, Clint is not here, he's off sick today and yesterday. I have to ask myself, if we did what is supply development, I spoke to the colleague there of Sandbox, right? If we're doing supply development, the outcome of supply development must be one of two things. Either I'm going to get new suppliers on board to supply Sandbox, or I'm going to get an existing supplier to supply more. If that's not my outcome, and if I'm not measuring that, then what the hell am I really doing? Then what I'm doing is I'm ticking the box. I'm ticking the box that I had 5 workshops. So, but I also realized I can't do it without Sandbox because they're going to give the market. Sandbox can't do it without me because they're going to give non-financial support. Sandbox and ourselves we can't do it without being any F or CETFA involved with regard to access to funding. Now, if that package is put together and we have successes of those entrepreneurs, everybody wins. Because everybody can report, but most importantly, the entrepreneurs got now a contact. But we can report that, you know what, this intervention that we did resulted in 5 entrepreneurs getting support. I'm talking a lot, but the last thing I'm going to tell you, a good example of our caterer today, right? What we've done as a department, we've compiled a catering panel. Okay, so we ask you, come, put you on a panel. Then what we do is we then fan our contracts out to the panel. So what happens now, Yolanda was telling me, she said, I saw you yesterday. I said, yeah. She did a catering contract yesterday at our Department of Agriculture. Now, that supply development intervention that we did there with Yolanda has resulted in Yolanda getting more work. Now that's the outcomes that we need to look. But we could not have done it without only ourselves. We had to do it with our departments. We had to do it with other support organizations. So my plea, and Rudy, thank you very much. Also the other government officials, my good friend there of CEDA, what's his name again? Okay, there was two of them that I put when they were still interns at CEDA, Lerato. So my plea is, let's use this as an example of how we can work together to not only serve our communities, but to also build our entrepreneurs. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. For a second, I thought we were going to church. For a second, I thought he would say amen after his speech, and most people would have responded on our side. But thank you very much for it. I think one element that you spoke of, and your talk was comprehensive, especially looking at the impact and expectation we had on cooperatives when cooperatives was introduced. But the one big thing, especially from the CIPC point of view, is to try to make all of that compliance a bit more efficient for that sector of business, and also for the mere reason that it has its bloodline into the communities. I think cooperatives are one of the company forms that are able to influence a lot of our socio-economic and economic and community space. So thank you very much for that, Mr. Peters. I think now my job is not to speak, because I can also speak till the cows come home. So my job today is not to speak. And you're gonna, this time, I think the welcome must not be warm. It must be warm with whistles and ululations and understand at the end. But we're about to call upon our keynote, just to understand a bit about the man that is about to speak now. The advocate, Rory Voller, who's the commissioner of the CIPC. He sits on many boards, committees that of legislation for this country. He holds a BA in law, an LLB, and an LLM, a master's in commercial law from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I don't want to bore you because his bio is 3 pages long. And I think that's just testament to the amount of work he's done for this organization and South Africa as a whole, especially for the company space. At this point, he's trying to obviously intellectual property Office of South Africa with BRIC and the IP office committees made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and current chair of the committee. Now, I need that warm. Remember, this is my boss, so, and I'm proud to say he's my boss. Okay, Rory Voller, thank you very much.
Offense always got a habit of embarrassing me, but I speak. But welcome everybody, and nice to see you again, John. And it was a great opening. I think it really leads itself to our discussion this morning. But before I start, maybe also on a side note, is that while you were speaking, I was frantically messaging my wife because she's also from one of the towns. I married, I'm not from here, but I married somebody from Etlo. I was frantically messaging, so which town do you visit your mother every year? And she says Parktown, which is next to Silvertown, apparently. So yeah, I married somebody from there. So she's every year we dad from there. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I will miss this. At the CIPC, we did quite a lot of seminars and workshops, and I couldn't agree with you more on the fact that most of these things have to be implementable outputs out of it. Otherwise, all we're doing is just putting on our annual performance plan that we have, which I hate, and that we haven't done anything for the communities for which we work in government and in to help. So we have a lot of work to do. We also do quite a lot of these type of what I call breakfast sessions. I've been putting these together quite a lot during the course of the year. This is the first out of how, strangely enough, and I'm glad it is. We have in Pretoria, Johannesburg. We speak on many topics. We have a lot of partners that are within government, I would say. But I'm very pleased that we do some work amongst cooperatives. I think that we, as an organization, we don't pay sufficient time and energy to the importance of cooperatives and the fact that we have a vibrant fishing community and others throughout the country which utilizes the co-op system very effectively. I think it's high time that we paid a lot of importance to it and assist and assemble government partners in the private sector in order for us to help this. Well, it's really a beautiful day today in Cape Town. I spend half my life here, either the work that I do. I have to come up into politics quite a lot and to the stakeholders, but also, as I said, I've got my wife's family from here, so I spend a lot of time and know that when the wind blows, not so beautiful. But it's I'm so to be here, and it really is an amazing time. Also, another last quick side note. I think hopefully, if you've just had the pleasure of buying a new place in Gordon's Bay, which also the wind blows quite a lot. But the one thing that my wife keeps telling me that now you're going to be living as part of our lives in the Cape, you need to learn how to fish. And I know absolutely even how to rod. I know how to do any of the before in and for this morning, and somebody can please volunteer to show me the about this. So much about and members of the system, government, Department of Fisheries and Environment, and mostly representatives of the fishing community. I'm very glad to be here about small business, scalable measure from the work that we do at CIPC. We do realize that we come from a country of high unemployment, a lot of inequality in majority of communities, and economic. We have seen that small businesses, majority of businesses we register at CIPC and register some 500,000 new companies annually. Can you believe it? That's a staggering amount of companies. One of the largest in the world. Because we have vibrant small business communities, including of co-operatives. We need of role to how to utilize them and bring them into the mainstream. How do we do that? We also that sheer luck, all right? I read this. I was reading a story on the plane. I was coming very late last night, and before I jumped on the plane, I picked up on a couple of things that were happening on LinkedIn. And I'm about seeing strange enough. And it's about a lady called Nadine Knife. You might know or not know. This lady Knife, she started a little business. All right, so I'm going to read that word for that. Lady Knife entered the 7.5 billion seafood market with 39,000 rand. She has facilities and a conviction work could restore dignity to fishing communities. South Africa's seafood grows 8 to 10% a year. It's dominated by large established distributors. Women farmers are underrepresented in the space, and mothers leading companies are almost heard of. Nadine sees as a limitation, she sees it as a design. 82 restaurants with 0. 85% peat rate, over 1 ton of beef. Stock turns 3 to 10 days. Any incomes operate on today's stocks, and the revenue growth from 39,000 to more than 2.5 million. And this is young Calgary. And this was yesterday. She's only in business for a year. She said straightforward operations. She likes to out much of the sector, Infrastructure is a level that allows to scale. Companies called Nyama Seafood. They show strong execution of a female-led business can look into high-pressure logistics, heavy markets. That's quite inspirational, right? This is a young man that got into the business with 9,000 rand, unheard of. So it shows if you get scale, right, and if you start working together in terms of the communities, you are able to deal with how do we grow this. Cooperatives, in my view, and I've seen this work in other countries. If you look at the Kenyan market, for example, and other parts of Africa, there are large cooperatives, and they show their potential. I spend a lot of the time in Switzerland for the work that I do in intellectual property. And every time I go there, I walk into supermarkets, I walk into small businesses, and always the name of the place is cooperatives. A supermarket that's a cooperative, there's a pharmacy, it's a cooperative, a bank that's a cooperative. And they're talking about developed nations now. So we know the power of these things, and we know the power of cooperatives to utilize them in the communities, especially when it comes to this community that I'm talking about. We have large agricultural cooperatives in vast places. You know, the whole wine industry just around the corner from here. Majority of those are cooperatives, right? And in Gauteng, I notice when I think about cooperatives, enough, I think about two provinces. I think about the Western Cape and I think about KwaZulu-Natal. But enough, some of the large, and let's see my cooperatives here. Some of the larger cooperatives are even up in Gauteng. All right, I actually did not know that. I think about two provinces, but it shows how cooperatives. So it really is a pleasure for me to. I've got a very bad habit of going off notes, so I really need to come back to it every now and again. But it shows the power of it, right? So it's really honored to be here. The Western Cape, with its rich marine heritage and vibrant coastal communities for which I very much love. I come here every single year in order to be part of the community. It's the cornerstone of our national fisheries sector. Here we come together not only to celebrate this legacy, but to explore how we can build a more inclusive, a vitally important word for me, a sustainable and economically empowered future together. And as John said, if we work together within government and partner from a national perspective and a provincial perspective, we certainly can have implementable parts that we all. So legal framework is opened by the Co-operatives Act, and I'm not going to bore you with all of that and how we deal with it. But there are also cooperatives advisory boards, which we are also part of, and the policy is underpinned. And the policy that we work through in CIPC is underpinned not by the department for which I work, which is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, but by the Small Business Development Department, because it shows the power and the nature of cooperatives, right? And small business growth within that particular sector. So we have a key tool in the cooperative incentive scheme, offers funding to registered primary cooperatives, especially those owned by historically disadvantaged individuals. The invention scheme helps lower barriers to entry, enabling co-op investment infrastructure, working capital, which we know is crucial for scale, sustainability. According to the cooperative may receive 350,000 available. I hope in the room will utilize the incentive scheme, and basically hear from we can show exactly how we work together in all us to the cooperatives. In addition, Sida is in the room, I think. Sida, welcome. This cooperative development program provides business development support, capacity building, and 100% grant funding for startup cooperatives, expansion, and cooperatives. So we speak to those who are very much involved in this business, and hopefully empower at least one within in order to utilize all of this and to go from school. We have done the work. We do realize, I think John mentioned and speak at many of these workshops. Many of it is not getting to, but one or two do it and see how it grows. We certainly have done work. At the CIPC, we believe in the collective enterprise. Those are more than just legal entities, they are vehicles of transformation. Allow communities to put resources, share, and participate meaningfully in the economy. For our registration platform, we have simplified the process of registering cooperatives, having faster, accessible services for communities across South Africa. We currently have 195,000 registered cooperatives in the register. That's a number. 195,000 cooperatives in South Africa. Of these, the majority are cooperatives, with just under 1,400 being secondary. And these cooperatives span sectors including agriculture, fisheries, crafts, housing, and financial services, with 11% being in the Western Cape. And we all know how this is empowers women businesses, right? So a lot of sectors within Limpopo or Northwest utilize the power of cooperatives for craft and on scale in order for them to make sure they grow their businesses. So the Western Cape in particular has seen a rise in fishing cooperatives, many of which are now formalized and participating in procurement and rights allocation processes. So South Africa faces the triple challenge of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And, we see this in the newspapers every single day. We can't stress this more than we are doing now. And therefore, we see that cooperatives offer a powerful response to these challenges. They become a central pillar for economic justice, a pillar for inclusion, and a pillar for community empowerment. They create jobs, they foster entrepreneurship, and they enable communities to participate in the formal economy. So in the Western Cape, fishing cooperatives have already demonstrated their potential. The recent allocation of 15-year fishing rights to 62 small-scale cooperatives benefiting nearly 4,000 fishers is a landmark achievement. It affirms the value of formal recognition and the importance of empowering traditional fishing communities. Globally, cooperatives are gaining recognition as a resilient, inclusive business model. According to the International Cooperative Alliance, cooperatives now represent over 1 billion members worldwide, contributing significantly to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Europe, North America, and Asia Pacific. Cooperatives are thriving in sectors ranging from agriculture to finance and increasingly in fisheries. So in terms of South Africa, we have a unique experience. South Africa's journey with fishing cooperatives is distinctive in several important ways. Number one, and I'm sure some of you in this room will know this, is that we need to look at how do we redress history, right? Allocation of 15 rights to co-ops is a strong gesture of equity, acknowledging past exclusion, creating space for long-term inclusion. That's number one. Number two is legal recognition. Formalization of small-scale fisheries into cooperatives rooted in a robust legal framework and underpinned by what is contained within legislation. Number three is interagency collaboration, and I think we've been stressing this, and I've mentioned this a few now. So the success of this initiative is due to strong collaboration between forestry and fisheries, business development, SIDA, provincial government, which to me plays a very crucial, maritime institutions, and community organizations. So we need to look at these community organizations, how they come together, and how they advocate for the role of inclusivity and historical redress. Mentorship and support is vital. Each cooperative is matched with dedicated resources for years, ensuring capacity building and sustainability. Number five, decriminalization of traditional fishing. And we're not talking about this abalone story. By recognizing co-ops legally, traditional fishers are no longer operating in a legal gray zone. The practices are legitimized, regulated, and most importantly, supported. And number six is balanced resource allocation. Basket species model ensures co-ops can meet subsistence needs while also participating commercially. And that is the reason why we're here. The formalization is part of addressing the commercialization value of cooperatives and bringing small-scale fisheries into the mainstream. So on a global scale, I'd just like to give you some examples of how this has worked in other countries. So fishing cooperatives around the world have shown how collective action can lead to sustainable resource management and economic empowerment. In Mexico, for example, lobster cooperatives have operated successfully for over 40 years, managing exclusive fishing zones and ensuring long-term sustainability. In Costa Rica, the Co-operatives cooperative adopted a code of responsible fishing, which has become a model for community-led marine conservation. In Alaska, the Alaska Seafood Cooperative has improved market access and policy advocacy for local fishers. In the Philippines, the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership has empowered small-scale fishers through training and infrastructure investment. These examples show that fishing cooperatives are not just viable, they're extremely vital for communities. They improve price negotiation, reduce dependency on intermediaries, and enable investment in shared infrastructure like ice plants and processing facilities. So therefore, what are the benefits for members? What are the benefits for the industry? And most importantly, what is the benefit for our communities? Indeed, there are benefits to all involved in the space, for their members, for the industry, and for South Africa at large. For members, cooperatives give small-scale fishers collective strength through pooled resources, whereby members can access vessels, they can share the infrastructure, they can share in storage, and they certainly can grow within the market. They gain legal recognition and stability via long-term rights, which promotes planning, governance, and business growth. And that's also why we're here, because we do understand that once you go into the world of cooperatives, like what you do within the world of companies, you come into a regulated space. So as part of our function is to ensure that that regulation is dealt with in a non-bureaucratic, without a red manner, and also empower the cooperatives to function effectively. Because not only must you have market access, and not only must you grow, you must also be able to be governed, because governance is vitally important in the way that businesses function. And far too long within the space for which I work, with OSHA enforcement and regulation, we see viable businesses not being viable or failing, not because they don't have markets, and not because they are not growing, it's because they have governance failures. Multitude of times we see this. People start fighting amongst each other, greed takes over, and there's a whole issue of not following legislation. So that's also why we're here. It's the empowerment nature of making sure that when you come into the regulated space within cooperatives, you remain one that follows what the rules are. So we also look at, in terms of members, is training and mentorship through our partners to reinforce business acumen. We look at responsible governance and make sure that the business is sustainable. But operating as co-ops preserve community cohesion and democratic participation. Therefore, they build social capital. Access to new species ensures food security also for their communities. What is in it for the fishing industry? We see more stable, small-scale sector. Cooperatives offer a regulated, organized structure that contributes to a more predictable and inclusive industry. The value-add potential is that co-ops, by then mature, and they invest in onshore processing, storage, and value addition, contributing beyond mere extraction. And stewardship, co-ops can steward near-shore resources more responsibly with a vested interest in sustainability. What is in it for South Africa and the nation? So economic transformation and inclusion, therefore co-ops promote broad-based participation in the blue economy, aligning with our national goals of inclusive growth. We look at poverty alleviation and local development, because co-ops support coastal and rural communities where small-scale fishers often live in marginalized areas. What is it for the blue economy? And this is part of our national development goals, is that the cooperative model supports Operation Pakisa, which integrates small-scale fishers into the national maritime economy. And also we look at how do we deal with empowerment and redress. By formalizing previously excluded fishers into recognized legal entities, the state corrects past injustices and fosters sustainable development. So we also look at how the issue of sustainability plays a part, and how does collaboration play a part in terms of the plan that we have, that we want to implement. Is that we must acknowledge the environmental dimension of the work that is undertaken. Sustainable fishing is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Overfishing, climate change, and habitat degradation threaten the very resources that sustain our coastal communities. Many initiatives are helping to transform fishing practices, promote traceability, and support marine conservation efforts. As a CIPC, we are committed to supporting cooperatives that align with these values and contribute to a resilient blue economy. Our collaboration with the Western Cape government, the Department of Economic Development, and the Fisheries Department have been exemplary. Together, we have revitalized fishing harbors, improved infrastructure, and we have supported the formalization of cooperatives. This partnership is a model that can and should be replicated in other provinces and other sectors. Indeed, to fully realize the transformative potential of cooperatives, we must have strong institutional collaboration is therefore encouraged among all the key role players. Only through sustained, structured, and coordinated collaboration Can cooperatives move beyond being beneficiaries to becoming drivers of inclusive and resilient prosperity? The health and social value of the fishing industry is not only an economic activity, it is a source of health and well-being. And I think you also mentioned this growing up. Fish is one of the most nutrition-rich foods available, providing high-quality protein, omega-3 fatty acids, and essential vitamins like B12 and D. Regular fish consumption supports cardiovascular health, brain function, and immune resilience. Beyond nutrition, the act of fishing itself offers physical and mental health benefits. I hope to get this once somebody shows me how to do it. It promotes outdoor activity, reduces stress, and fosters social cohesion. Fishing communities often embody values of patience, resilience, and stewardship, qualities that are deeply needed in today's world. I'm sure you all can agree with that. So looking ahead, and as I conclude, let us envision a future where cooperatives are not just surviving, but definitely thriving. Where fishing communities are not just participating, but leading. Where collaboration between government, industry, and civil society drives inclusive growth and environmental stewardship. The CIPC stands ready to support this vision. We invite all stakeholders to continue working with us to register, to comply, to grow, and to innovate. Together, we can build a cooperative economy that is sustainable and therefore prosperous. I thank you very much for the time.
Advocate Rory, Voller, everyone, can we do that with a bit more warmth? Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm sorry to the delegates, I should have warned you that not only would you be getting a keynote, but you would be getting an engaging speech, which has a lot of content. I think the Commissioner gave you guys a privileged insight on some of the work we do, especially seeing that as a regulator, people just think regulate registration of stuff. But the bigger impact to what we do is in out of what the Commissioner has said. So if you had listened and picked up a few, there's a few success stories in there, and there's a few way forwards as far as some of these industries and how we can create support for these business sectors. So thank you, Commissioner, for that. Swiftly on to the next speaker. I remember I said job to not to speak, so I'm going to keep reminding myself of that. We're still together. Not away. Oh, not away. We're still together. All right. Our next speaker, just for to understand a bit of the person who's going to stand up here and speak. I think it's always best to know that's the name of the person and the title they hold. Also a bit of background as to maybe where they come from, what they've done. Our next speaker is an admitted attorney with an LLM. Also a cum laude graduate with the business school. Before coming to Chian, I happened to serve as an executive for Heineken and other private sector entities. Currently, she's holding the Group Executive Corporate Regulatory Affairs. Chian. And once again, with warm Cape Townian warm welcome. Can we welcome Zodwa Vam to the podium? Thank you very much. Yes, we were talking about you.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Before we start, I thought we could actually start with the video. Maybe let's put that on. I think it will provide some context of what I'd like to talk about. Thank you.
Okay, can we share? Can we just remember to share here? Oh, no. Is it not this one? No, it's not. Just then we can just jump on that side and play.
At Oceana, we are committed to creating sustainable value and positively impacting the lives of all our stakeholders. This informs everything we do. In our CSI work, we do this through two key strategic pillars. Firstly, through our food security initiatives. Secondly, through changing the face of the fishing industry under the banner of Oceana and our Maritime Academy. To this end, we've joined forces with DINA, F&B, NSRI, and the DFFE to establish a small-scale fishers program called Co-operative Sense. And to date, we've trained over 600 small-scale fishers. The program delivers comprehensive training and mentorship programs around the country to enable fishing cooperatives to run as successful SMMEs. To present the program, our team left Cape Town and crisscrossed the country. And it wasn't all smooth sailing. We traveled through some of the harshest terrains, and not a single training session went by without someone in the team puncturing a tire. Each venue brought its own challenges, all in the most rural of areas. Some venues were locked, even though they had been booked. Other venues had run out of electricity, and we had to buy more units. Some had no toilets, and others had no taps. So we had to find a JoJo tank and buckets to store water. But our commitment, passion, and the quick thinking of our team was bigger than any of the challenges thrown at us.
Hierdie opleiding wat ons gekry het by Oceana gaan ons besigheid baie help.
When I'm doing a small scale fishery, it helps myself with my family. I've got something to provide for them.
We need partnerships like this in order to empower these fishing cooperatives and help them self-sustain their business.
Oceana is a company of action and commitment. We are committed to positively impacting lives on many levels. Now we're calling on you and your teams to help us.
Good morning, everybody. I've already been introduced and I'm seeing familiar faces as well around the room. I also note that we've got quite a few people online. I say Tada, just to make sure that we keep them also in the room. I thought I could start by playing that video, which talks to what it is that Oceana has done in its role as a commercial within the fishing sector to change the face of the fishing industry, particularly on the SSF level. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about everything that we've learned over the years, because we started the program when I joined in 2019, but already some work had already been done by the time I joined in 2019. And in the main, I think what I do want to say is that I'm grateful that I actually joined the business when I joined it, because I do not have the past experiences that everybody had of the cooperatives that have failed, that have been useless, because I was in another world. So when I joined, I knew that we could actually make a difference, we can actually make an impact. We recognize the role that is played by the SSFs. It's crucial for food security, it's crucial for job creation, and it's actually an important segment in the value chain that I do know that often is actually underestimated and undervalued but we recognize it because we've taken time to partner with them and to work with them. And as we've shown, to crisscross the country to make sure that they're actually trained. There had been some challenges, obviously, when it comes to the cooperatives, and I call them challenges because that's exactly what they were. And initially was the challenges around their registration. You do know that with CIPC, when you want to register, you need to actually have your papers in order. You need to have your address. You need to have your constitution in place. Most of these cooperatives did not have them. Government, as you also so correctly put it out, they put together cooperatives and say, here you are, now you're going to work together. They allocate your fishing basket without actually saying, how do we train you to make sure that you are able to take this opportunity seriously and turn it into an entity that is actually able to contribute financially to your organization and to your community. So we sat with the DFFE at the beginning of all of this. There were many, many interested parties, partners that actually came in and said, we're raising our hand, this is what we can do, this is what we're already doing. And the idea was to make sure that we do not duplicate effort. Not everybody needs training all the time. Sometimes they need the resources, sometimes they need the financial assistance, sometimes they need the mentorship. But we needed to see what it is that we as Oceana can do within that space to make sure that we're actually able to support them. And we came what was called the cooperative sense. The cooperative sense was not just Oceana or just an Oceana initiative. We worked with NSRI. We were able to pull in FNB as a bank because they were actually our bankers at the time. And the question to them was what it is that you can do to make sure that the cooperatives are able to open a banking facility. Because if you're going to register, you're going to look for funds. They do want you to actually have a banking account. Again, it's difficult if you do not have a stable address, if you do not stay in areas that are serviced. Because the bank wants to make sure that you've got an ID, you've got an address, we know who the signatories are, you've got the constitution. And the mandate to the bank was you need to make sure that they are able to open a banking facility. One of the challenges that we faced was the fact that they do not always get a substantial and substantive income every single month because we know that fishing is seasonal. So if you're unable to maintain your banking account, you can't pay the fees, they close the bank. And they'll come to Oceana and say that they've not been able to maintain the account. What do we do? Again, we needed to make sure that we use our relationships with the bank to say they need to continue to make sure that those accounts are actually opened. And I mean, sometimes we think that these are huge monies. It's 50 Rand, it was at the time, that many of the cooperatives could not afford to actually have their banking accounts opened. Again, that was the partner that we brought on board to make sure that they're able to assist us with that. I want to talk about safety as well. Many of the co-ops, when they actually go out at sea, many they cannot swim. Many they actually rely on the past experiences that have been passed down from their parents to say, you go this direction, they should be fish, this is the season. And we are always hoping to actually come back alive. It does not always happen like that. And sometimes you find that even if NSRI is actually out there, it's not the organization that they would call on because they think that they will think they are poachers, they're going to be arrested. So we needed to also change the mindset to say NSRI is going to give like the basics of swimming, how to keep safe at sea and how to make sure that you go out and actually come back alive. They have been such a crucial partner of ours in making sure that we are able to provide this sea safety knowledge to most of our cooperatives. The other bit that was also important was safety at sea. So we provided the first aid training, again, very important to our co-ops that attend the sessions that we actually offered. I see some of the familiar faces here. I'm sure when we engage, they'll be able to talk themselves in terms of what it is that they were actually able to gain from the trainings that were actually offered by Oceana. When we look at the training itself that we were offering, it was offered by experts in the training of fisher people. That was Dinah that we actually partnered with them. But we also like the fact that it was offered in the languages that people could understand. It was offered in Xhosa, it was offered in Afrikaans, it was offered in Zulu. And those are the provinces that we actually went to because that's where the cooperatives were actually established in the Eastern Cape, in KZN. We started in the Western Cape and also in the Northern Province. Our commitment to the department was that we would train every single cooperative that has been registered and established by the department. So it was not for us to establish them, but once they were established, we were responsible in making sure that we actually offer this training to them. We talk a lot about the governance. That was another big thing that was a challenge with the cooperatives. Because they don't know each other, they've not worked with each other. There's a constitution. How do we make sure that it makes sense to us in a manner in which we can understand it? We needed to make sure that they're able to resolve their own conflict within the cooperatives, because if you cannot work with each other, how are you actually going to be able to have a sustainable business? So that was very, very important. We were able to train on finance. So that was another chapter that took quite a bit. And again, to make sure that they understand their cash flow, they understand where they want to invest their monies, they understand where they're going to be marketing their fish, who's going to be buying it, what is the income that they can actually expect, and what it is that they want to do with the monies that they're actually able to get from that initiative. Compliance being another one. Obviously, you need to keep the documents. Again, we heard how important it is. The cooperatives will fail, not because they do not make money or they are unable to sell their canned fish, but compliance is a big part of it. Because if you're talking about growth, you've got ambitions of growing, you will not be able to do that unless we're actually able to show where you were, what's the gap, and what it is that we actually still require, or the gaps that you want to fill. So the cooperative sense, it is a training manual that we developed, we've shared, it's available, and we'll continue to use it to make sure that we actually empower as many SSF communities or cooperatives that we actually, can. And it didn't matter, as we have seen. We trained during COVID, we were wearing masks, of course, observing all the safety protocols to make sure that everybody is actually touched by the training that we offer. One of the things that was very important to us, and it actually came out in the training, was the fact that many of the cooperatives would say, but we've got women. They don't go to see why should they actually benefit from the monies that we're actually able to make from the proceeds of our sales. Again, that was something that actually needed to be addressed, to say what then becomes the role of women in the cooperatives. In this day and age, we're not just talking about women. We also have the differently abled that need to actually come into the cooperatives. Again, how do we make sure that the cooperatives begin to represent all sectors, all people of our communities? 3 years into the program, we paused and we said that we actually need to do an impact assessment study. We need to understand whether that which we said we've been doing is actually working. We commissioned Mtente together with our partners, and they came back with the report, and we got quite some greens, but there was a big gap. And the big gap in there was actually the fact that many of the cooperatives, they said they now require mentorship. They need somebody to actually assist them to grow the understanding that they already had. And in the last, 18 months, Ali, we worked with CITA, we worked with DFFE, and again to appoint about 100 mentors that have been trained and each allocated to the cooperatives, again to assist them to make sure that they're actually able to make that turnaround. It's still early stages because we are still in training, and we have tried to make sure that they are each partnered with the cooperative. And again, in point in time, we're going to pause and say, has this yielded any results? Because my team, we don't train for the sake of training. We actually set in the outcome and the results. It might be one, it might be, but with that, we're able to get the learning and say, how do we transfer that knowledge and experience to the other cooperatives? I think we talk about partnership. Partnership is actually very important. We'll continue to make sure that, there is collaboration with stakeholders that are actually going to assist us in making sure that we continue to change the face of the fishing industry. Some of you might be interested. There was a study that was also done by Trilog, again, looking into the cooperatives, what it is that has actually made some of the cooperatives in the fishing sector to still thrive and to be sustainable. You might be able to get it. Alicia as well will be able to share that study. But again, I think that there is some groundwork that has actually been done that we can actually utilize to say, we are not starting at the bottom. We are somewhere we can only take it forward. As Oceana, we do remain committed in making sure that, we continue to kick the needle forward. we are looking for collaborations. And I do tend to think that, and I did share it with Banesha, that probably what we do need to do as all players in the sector is again to actually have an even bigger summit where we will have all these role players that again will come in and say what it is that you have that we can actually put on the table. We can then consider all the offering, put it together and say this is the next phase. We think that the cooperatives can actually go, particularly in the fishing sector. But I do tend to think that there's been a lot that has been done. There's a lot that has been done in the policy development. There's been a lot to make sure that the cooperatives are actually recognized as sustainable. We've seen some green shoots in others, and particularly in Port Nolloth, where they're able to actually generate real income that they're able to plow back into their own cooperatives. And from Oceania, truly, it has been an honor, for us to be able to journey with the department and all the role players, and even if they are not here, to make sure that we are able to make some impact in what we've actually committed to do. It has been a program that has been running for now almost 5 years. And I do tend to think that the consistency, not being in today because it's fashionable and then we leave it, remaining the cause, that's when you actually begin to see the impact. That's when you begin to see the value. And as Ocean, I think that we'll continue to do that. I am going to be here if there are any questions afterwards, more than ready to engage. And I don't fly solo. Many of you know Ali is our head of corporate social investment. Ali, maybe you can stand and you can wave. He knows far more than me, but he does run our department and particularly the SSF. And he does have Pillar there at the back. Pillar, you are not going to die in silence, is right there. They are available. Anything I cannot answer, they will give you more detail than I could ever. And on that score, thank you for choosing the OMA to actually have your summit. Hope we'll see more of you again sooner when we get to host the bigger summit. And on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Can we just say thank you again to I like the fact that I don't have to complete my sentence. We have an understanding already as to where we are going. Thank you very much for that. And I think it goes without saying the amount of great work that this facility is doing. I think we need quite more of these kind of facilities who don't only just speak about what they do, but we can actually see the physical work of what they do on this side. And I think that's pretty great on our side. The next speaker we have will be joining us virtually. So you'll just bear with us a little bit as we try and obviously make sure that all connections and everyone are available. Abongile, you're able to hear me, so hopefully can you just unmute there on your side?
Good morning, Program Director. Yes, I'm here.
All right, hundreds. No, we can hear you. And thank you for also stating that we do have online participants. So when we started the side, we said away my second and everyone was happy. So because we don't know where you are watching us from, we'll still say away my second. Thank you for joining us online. Abangile, will you be presenting something from your side? So, or is it the presentation on the flash drive? All right. Abangile, I think from your side, you can continue. I think I'll just have to move for you on this side, I believe.
Okay.
Are you with me, Abangile?
Yes, I'm here. Is the presentation visible from your side, Program Director?
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you very much. First and foremost, thank you for the invitation. And apologies, I could not join physically for this important engagement. I would have loved to, but due to a number of commitments, I could not be able to join, but I'm grateful for the fact that I'm able to join virtually. I would have loved to see the familiar faces that I've known for many years there, and also would have loved to see the new faces. But being that as it may, I'm hoping that there will be another session where I'll be able to join physically. My name is Abongile Ngongwa. I come from an organization by the name of Abalobi, ICT for Fisheries. Abalobi is a name that means fisheries. It's an isiXhosa name, which means fisheries. And interestingly enough, in isiZulu, Abalobi means those who write their own history. And it's important for me to emphasize this because it also talks to the journey that the small-scale fisheries sector is currently on. And also, before I start with my presentation, I would also like to indicate that I had an opportunity of working for government for a number of years, for over 15 years, particularly within the small-scale fisheries sector. And through the journey, I've gotten to have a better understanding of the fishing communities and the struggles that they have gone through and the wins that they have had over the years. So on my second slide, which is labeled Abalobi is a hybrid organization, if we can just maybe focus on that for now. So I just want to quickly explain what Abalobi is. Firstly, Abalobi is a non-profit company registered in South Africa, and our main goal is to work with fisher groups in South Africa and beyond. Currently, outside of South Africa, we operate in close to 15 countries, specifically working with small-scale fishers from Mozambique, Kenya, Tanzania, to Mexico, Chile, Madagascar, and many other countries as well. And our focus is to assist the small-scale fishers in navigating the access to the resources, data monitoring, to access to markets, and also promoting sustainability and ensuring that they own the data that they generate. So in a nutshell, that is the work that we do. And we do that through the development of technologies. We develop applications internally that we deploy to fishing communities. So the nonprofit organization in itself runs through catalytic funding and project grants, and also impact loans and revenue-based financing. And then there is a full-profit company called Abalobi Labs, which is 75% owned by Abalobi as a non-profit organization, and the remainder of that is owned by a funder that funds Abalobi. So all the revenue that comes from the full profit goes straight to the non-profit organization that helps us to continue doing the work that we do in fishing communities. Then just a bit of a framework on this, and I think we have a good understanding of this, and I'm glad that the Commissioner also lamented on some of the things that I'm going to touch on. First and foremost, when we talk about small-scale fishing cooperatives, we are talking about people who are in these cooperatives that have been marginalized for years and years. Due to the history of South Africa, and also due to the limited understanding and sense of urgency that was not there at some point in addressing the needs of the fishing communities. And it has always been the prioritization of the commercial fishing sector. But things changed over time. There was a new legislation that was put in place. If you can move to the next slide, please. There was a new legislation that was put in place, and the process of recognizing the small-scale fishers commenced. It had its own challenges, but it went through to a point now that throughout the coastline of South Africa, we have over 10,000 declared small-scale fishers. Out of those, there are close to 200 cooperatives. Now, I just want us to pause here and reflect a bit on this. We have over 10,000 people that are identified and recognized. These people come from impoverished communities. where they themselves have on average about 5 dependents with them. And that means we are looking at direct and indirect potential beneficiaries of 50,000 people. And on top of that, we have people that are in cooperatives, close to 200 cooperatives. So the government and the stakeholders has a responsibility of ensuring that these 200 businesses are successful to a point that they provide livelihood to 50,000 people. So that is a very huge task at hand. And from the words of Zodwa, it really does require us to work as an ecosystem towards this particular agenda. And hence, some of these challenges we need to be very aware of, and we need to be intentional, and we need to ensure that we keep track of the progress moving forward. But before we even do that, we also need to understand what is at stake here. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So the first hurdle that we need to consider is the availability of the very same marine resources that the communities depend on for their livelihood. Unlike in the agricultural sector, you have form of control in terms of what your production is going to be. In the fishing space, you are dealing with the resource that is under the water, and there are a lot of unknowns. Currently, in terms of the DFFE's status of the marine resources, which was the latest one in 2023, basically 31% of the available marine living resources are at a healthy status. And that's a very low percentage considering the demand that is there. And then also over 40% of the marine resources are overexploited. That means that there is more fishing than what the sea can provide. But what also is interesting and concerning is the fact that 29% of the marine resources out there, they are undefined. They are unknown. There's limited scientific data. There's poor reporting and data gaps, and there's historic prioritization of the so-called high-value species. Because in South Africa, you have 22 fisheries. And those 22 fisheries are there mainly because they have been commercialized, and there are 29 other species that are undefined or unknown in terms of their status. That talks to the research agenda that government needs to focus on in partnership with relevant stakeholders such as your universities and the communities as well. Then if we can move to the next slide. Another challenge that small-scale fishers are faced with, it's the issue around climate change. This is real. Communities are the ones who are experiencing this firsthand. They are the ones who experience that year in, year out. When you look at the lobster season, the water is becoming warmer, meaning that the lobster has softer shells and there are higher mortalities. The lobster is no longer as strong as it used to be at particular times. And also they understand that there are instances of lobster walkouts. There are instances in the Northern Cape where when the season starts already the lobster is in berry and they can't be able to fish. So those are the practical things that are being experienced in communities. Another example, on the Eastern Cape, communities have started seeing that the rocks that used to be covered by mussels, they are bare now. The mussels are no longer there, and it's affecting them on a day-to-day basis. And this also affects, the local economic and livelihoods that the communities depend on. So in any intervention that we think of, we need to consider these, challenges of the declining marine stocks and also the issues around climate change. How do we put the communities or the cooperatives in a position where they are more resilient to the climate changes? If we can move to the next slide. So with this slide, now I've spoken to the marine resources that are declining, the climate change, but if we zoom into the actual challenge of cooperatives themselves, that's where I think we need to also pay particular attention. I think the commissioner touched a bit on this. From our side as Abalobi, before we could even commit to working with the cooperatives, we needed to get a better understanding of what is it that we are going to be addressing and what is it that we want to see out of our intervention. So we did an intensive study in consultation with people in fishing communities. All in all, we came up with these 3 pillars of challenges. The first main challenge is that the current cooperatives that we have in fishing communities, they have limited capacity to operate sustainable cooperatives. And there are 3 reasons for that. The first one, it's the challenges of governance and financial management. And this is caused, one, by the fact that not all individuals in communities or cooperatives understand clearly how a cooperative operates. And there's generally low levels of literacy in communities. There's limited skills and knowledge in running businesses in the form of a cooperative. And we also have to be honest to ourselves in saying that cooperatives are a very complicated form of business to operate as compared to any other form of business that is out there. But the cooperatives are important because they are inclusive, they're bringing everyone together, and they ensure that people participate in an equitable manner within a cooperative, but they are complicated. But as it has been indicated that there are many examples out there showing that cooperatives can succeed, and once they succeed, the impact that they have is astronomical. And then also another issue is lack of access to fair markets. I think most of the fishers who are in the room today, they know this very well. There's an animal called interim relief where people, were exploited over many years, without them being directly involved in the value chain and accessing the markets. And this is caused by a number of issues. Top of the list is the issue of infrastructure and remote landing sites in some of the communities that are more remote. And there's also lack of bargaining power and price setting influence. You are told the price, and if you don't want, someone else is gonna, offer that price to you. So you might as well give up, negotiating the price. And then there's also limited access to cold chain and storages. You see people on the side of the road holding a bunch of Cape Bream, selling it to whomever that is willing to buy at whatever price, and then the value is lost there because that person is not able to keep the fish. And then there's also poor access to reliable and transparent market information. Again, in the lobster sector, communities are told that we are going to buy your lobster for this much because the price in Hong Kong is this much. There's no information beyond that. Communities are expected to understand and accept what is given to them. And there's this dominance of intermediaries or middlemen in fishing communities that run around and further segregating and divorcing people from each other in these communities, which has also contributed to how these cooperatives are struggling to run to this day. Then lastly, the issue of limited skills. I think this one, it's something that we need to focus a lot of energy on, because if we do not address the limited skills issue, even if the cooperative can have the most lucrative fishing rights in this world, they're not going to be successful. They're not going to be able to access the markets properly. They're not going to be able to run their governance in the cooperative. They're not going to be able to manage their finances efficiently. And the limited, skills also talks to the historic marginalization and exclusion of communities from formal education. There's geographic isolation and poor access to schools, and economic pressure that required people to join fishing at an early age and leave school. We see this more prevalent in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, where you have 14-year-olds fishing on a day-to-day basis and not even going to school. And then there's also seasonal migration or seasonality of fishing in itself that also causes this particular issue. And there's intergenerational poverty and limited education support in fishing communities. If we can move to the next slide, please. So from our side as an organization, we had to look at a cooperative support program as part of the broader program that we are involved in, particularly here in South Africa. So our aim is to support small-scale fishers, fishing cooperatives through a structured developmental program that deals with the 3 pillars that I've identified. And our approach, as indicated, is to look at the governance, financial sustainability, skills development, and access to markets. If we can move to the next slide, please. So our approach is in a step-by-step approach, whereby each step is overlapped by the next coming step. It's important to have an approach that is sequential, so that you do not set the cooperatives to fail, and you need to ensure that you are able to measure the progress over time and be able to set the next targets moving along with the cooperatives. Just a side note, if you look at the cooperatives that are deemed successful in Chile at this point in time, it took them 20 years to get to a stage of being sustainable. But in South Africa, it does not have to take that long for cooperatives to be sustainable. We are lucky from our side because government is directly involved one way or the other. And there are partners such as Oceana Maritime Academy and Abalobi and other partners out there that are willing to join in this and put their shoulders on the wheel in ensuring that the small-scale fisheries sector is successful. I do believe that we are going to see a number of cooperatives that will be sustainable in the process of sustainability within the next 5 years. Because from the engagements and what we have noticed, as much as there are these challenges in communities, there's a huge desperation from small-scale fishers to see their cooperatives working. And I think there's a widespread, acceptance that there are challenges, but there is a desperation from the communities to see the cooperatives working. That is the first step. One of the things that contributes to cooperatives being dysfunctional, more especially in the agricultural sector and also in other sectors, it's an unintended consequence that comes from government, where an announcement is made that there is a grant funding of 500,000 rands. A requirement is that you need to register a cooperative. And then people, they run and register cooperatives for wrong reasons. They register cooperatives to access the funding. Once the funding hits the bank, people start fighting because their end goal was the funding. At this point, the end goal is to ensure that the cooperatives are sustainable, and it's to ensure that fishing communities have access to fishing over a long period of time, or for generations and generations. So the reason for joining cooperatives, at least it's clear and it's different from some of the programs that had a contribution in cooperatives failing. So I'm just going to quickly go through the stages that we go through when we work with cooperatives. The first one, which is very important, which is the basis for us to work, is the relationship building. Introducing Abalobi and ensuring that there's a good understanding of who we are as an organization. Let's please go back to the previous slide. And also defining the potential synergies between ourselves and the cooperative, and also getting a buy-in from the cooperatives. Can we please go back to the previous slide? Thank you. And then also we sign MOUs with cooperatives that we work with. This is important because it also signals the fact that when we work with cooperatives, we are not there as saviors. We are not there with all the information and with all the know-how. We are there to establish a relationship, a mutual relationship between ourselves as an organization and as a cooperative. The MOU clearly outlines the agreed upon activities or aspects that we partner on to provide the support to the small-scale fishing cooperatives. And the MOU also outlines the roles and responsibilities. And what's nice about this MOU, it's non-binding. It's more of a pledge to work together under these conditions. Then the second part, we look at governance support. We look at firstly, the compliance measures, whether the cooperative has had its AGM and how the AGMs were called, and also if all the necessary compliance documents are in place. If not, how do we assist in that regard? And then also we assist with defining the vision. This one is important because in some of these cooperatives, if you can call 10 people in a cooperative and ask each person, what is the vision of this cooperative, or why is this cooperative existing? In most instances, you're going to get 10 different answers. And that is the first problem, because if we have 10 different answers, that means in any engagement that we have in our cooperative, we have it at different perspectives. And hence, you are bound to have conflicts in that regard. And then also we assist with setting goal and also roles and responsibilities within a cooperative. And then once that is in place, we are in a position now to look at business operations. And then the first thing that we look at is financial management. How do we put financial tools in place to assist the cooperatives to operationalize their business? Simple thing. If fishers go out to sea and come back, how do they get paid by their own cooperatives? Or how do the cooperative members pay a fee towards its own cooperative to keep the cooperative operating? And hence, we introduce the digital tools that we develop internally within the organization. We have a variety of those. You have Abalobi Fisher, which is an application that allows for a fisher to record his or her own information when they go out to see how much they've spent on bait, on food, on fuel, and other expenses. And then when they come back, how much they have landed and how much they have sold, so they can keep their own accounting at their disposal. And then we also initiate the local sales. This one is also important. We are currently working with a cooperative in Ebenezer, where they go out and fish and then they come back, and then we assist them to sell their fish to their community and the surrounding areas. And this has been a huge success. They started with 100 kilograms of Cape Bream. We gave it to them. Within a week, that 100 kilograms was sold. And then the following week, we gave them 200 kilograms of Cape Bream. Again, within a week, it was finished. And then we gave them 250 kilograms of Cape Bream, and then it was finished within a week again. Now we are in a process now of significantly increasing that amount of fish, and then they will be able to start selling at a scale. But before we even get to that, we need to make sure that there are necessary financial tools in place for them to be able to manage their operations. And then that is the stage where we also intend to see cooperatives contributing to jobs in their communities. Currently in Ebenezer, they will start using the Abalobi Monitor, and they are employing 2 people that are going to record all the fish landed on behalf of that cooperative as of next month. Then the next step will be the Abalobi Marketplace. Now, as I've indicated, access to markets is one of the key things that communities struggle with. And we have a platform from our side and infrastructure along the West Coast up until the South Coast, where we have hubs that are able to hold stock and process stock to some extent, and be able to channel products through our marketplace channels. Currently, if you go to any ocean basket in South Africa, there's a food item there whereby you can order a whole Cape Bream. That fish exclusively comes from fishing communities in the Western Cape. That is through the program that we are running. And when you are at Ocean Basket, you're able to scan the fish that you eat, and it will tell you where that fish was caught, who caught that fish, and you're able to even send a message to the person that caught the fish that you are eating, and just connect to confirm if those people have received a fair price or not. And that's where the aggregation comes in, where we encourage for fishers in the cooperative to work together and be able to have a better negotiating power and be able to access the markets fairly. Then the next step is the infrastructure. With this one, we are busy with a project that we are hoping it's going to take off from next year in May, where we are working with the Jobs Fund under the National Treasury, where we want to set up additional hubs along the coastline and have jobs created through that. And then through the marketplace as well, it's worth mentioning that the processing and the value of the fish, 77% of it remains in the communities. And then the infrastructure part, in terms of government, they're expecting primary cooperatives to be members of secondary cooperatives after 3 fishing seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Then we're already setting ourselves regarding that to provide the support to primary cooperatives to be members of secondary cooperatives, because we know that it's important for this in order to increase the aggregation platform and be able to access the markets better. And fortunately, there is a secondary cooperative, I believe they will be presenting today, which is providing a learning opportunity for all other secondary cooperatives that are coming. And we are glad and honored to be working with this secondary cooperative. And we are looking forward to learning a lot from them moving forward. The last step in providing support is the sustainability part. This is where we all want the cooperatives to be, where they are sustainable economically and otherwise, and they are ready to scale further, and they contribute immensely on employment. With the secondary cooperatives are in a position of running fully fledged fish processing establishment. They are able to negotiate and they are directly involved in the value chain. Then if we can move to the next slide. Then I just want to quickly emphasize the importance of skills development. We also run a platform, which is an online platform as well, which is called a Talent LMS, that are available for free, and we're in a position of availing them to any like-minded organization where they can use the content to further the training of fishing cooperatives. We also develop some of these courses through our partnerships. We are currently working with an organization called Assisa Foundation, where they focus on financial training. We're also working with many other organizations that have contributed to the content that we have. So we do online training, physical training, and mentorship training as well. And also we facilitate peer learning workshops and exchanges. In the past couple of months, we took some of the fishers that we work with from Kenya, and then they were here in South Africa for an exchange program. And then also last month, we had a couple of fishers from Port St. John's that went to Tanzania for fisher exchange as well. So we are planning on continuing with that exchange program as part of skills development. If we can move to the next slide, please. So with this next slide, we can skip it. It's just showing some of the training interventions that we have on our Talent LMS. You can see there's post-harvest quality control protocols, product development and business planning, coaching, assistant training and induction. We've also trained DFFE mentors, and also we have refresher courses. And there are many other courses that we are offering for free in South Africa for small-scale fishers and the cooperatives. Then if we can move to the next next slide. This next slide just indicates our Access to Markets program, which we call Fish with a Story, where any fisher that has caught his or her fish or their fish as a cooperative, it carries the identity of that person or of that cooperative. There's full traceability from the boat to the plate, whether you're buying fish Abalobi supplied fish through checker stores. We have about 14 checker stores in the Western Cape that sell this fish. We are currently finalizing a deal to work with a spare group where fish will also be sold there. And there's more than 200 restaurants currently that are serving fish through Abalobi, which is traceable. Then if we can move to the next slide, I'm also not going to go through this slide, but it's just showing the process that we follow from before fishers go out to sea. We provide ice, we provide them with temperature probes. We do quality control training when fishers come back from sea. The fish is in cooler boxes that have QR codes to start the traceability. And then we have logistics that is in place. We have facilities to keep the fish and process the fish, and then how the fish moves to household sales, to restaurants, and also to ocean baskets and the likes, and also looking at exporting yellowtail. Next slide, please. This is just an emphasis of the importance of traceability, which also contributes to addressing the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishery in South Africa. If we can move to the next slide, please. We can move again. Next slide. Okay, previous slide. I think you skipped one more slide. I suspect that there's a lag from my side, but if you can move to the slide before this one that is flighted now. No, the previous slide. Go back, 2 slides back. Yes, this one. Thank you. So out of all this work that we have done with the partners that we work with, what has been the result of this? Ever since we started in 2016, if you look at the social impact, firstly, 75% on average of people who joined the Abalobi program after 1 year, they are food secure. And to date, we have over 100,000 mouths fed through our food security program in fishing communities. And 41% of beneficiaries within our program, it's women. And we currently support 38 fisher groups, which includes the cooperatives. And to date, we have channeled directly to fishing communities over $2 million US. So it's about 18 million rands that has gone directly to communities. And 77% of that value remains in fishing communities. What do I mean by this? You find out that after fishers come back from sea, there'll be someone who will buy the fish and then leaves the community. And then the value is left out of the community. So for every fish that we channel through the communities, the post-harvest quality control is done by fisherwomen that comes from the communities. They clean, gut, and scale the fish, and then it gets transported from there, and then they get paid through that particular process. We work with just over 100 post-harvest quality control fisherwomen in communities. Then we have over 7,844 direct beneficiaries in all our programs, and 10% of the fishers that are in the programs, they use the financial services that we provide, such as your savings and life cover. and also we do a lot of training on financial services. Then on ecological aspect, when it comes to sustainability, we need to rethink what we mean by sustainability. And at this point, there's 93% of ecological sustainability of market catch, which is composed within 3 years, meaning that out of all the fish that is being harvested, 93% of it is considered sustainable. But we also run community fisheries improvement projects, and we also ensure that there's stability in terms of fish that is sold. To date, we have fully traceable legal seafood that has been sold through Abalobi Marketplace, which is close to 500 metric tons. Then our goal moving forward is to increase our direct revenue in fishing communities. This current year now, our goal is to have $2.5 million going directly to communities. We are sitting at 2 million, and our target, we have to meet it by end of March next year. And then we have those projections there by 2029-30 forecast is that just over $9 million has to go directly to fishing communities. So if you can move to the next slide. Sorry, I forgot to ask that. Yeah, so those are the projections that I was just mentioning. Then if we move to the next slide, I'm almost done. Then we can skip this slide. This is the same approach that we're going to follow moving forward in taking up more cooperatives. Then how do we scale from our side? Scaling out, we need to ensure that we have more market hubs along the coastline, and hence the work that we are busy with the Jobs Fund. We need to reach out to more cooperatives. We need to continue providing software services outside of South Africa. In scaling up, our goal is to strengthen our relationship with the DFFE, mainly where they can be able to use the Abalobi platform that is free of charge in South Africa, and we charge it outside of South Africa. Then also looking further at the market access program, where we have to see fair trade procurement channels, and then also financial services data. And then scaling deeper, we want to see fishers logging and having their data ownership, and also ensuring that the storytelling that recognizes the work that the communities do in communities, and then also continue promoting the gender equity in all aspects of fishing. Then the last slide, if you can move to the last one, just shows the number of partners that we work with currently. And we are hoping that through these types of engagements, we will increase our network in ensuring that...
are you able to hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We seem to have lost your audio.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Can you indicate if you can hear us, Mr. Abongile?
I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
It seems to be the problem is from where offense is, because I can hear you clearly.
But I think we will share the slides with the participant. I'm just hoping that your audio connection will be back for the interaction session, because I think a lot of what you've said is quite interesting, and I think our delegates might have a lot that they would like to obviously engage you on. But we seem not to be getting audio from your side. I'm not sure if you are able to hear us from our side.
Yes, I'm
but
able
I think for the sake of continuity, I think we will share the presentation. Can we quickly give a round of applause for Mr. Abongile for his great presentation? I think one great thing that I'm going to try myself, they say if you go to Ocean Basket and there's a fish you order and there's a QR code you scan and you are able to tell the fisherman if the fish was good or bad, I'm gonna try that out. I think that goes very far as telling the story of this fishing industry, and I think a lot of more of those kind of initiatives existed. Not only are we looking at the economic benefit from, all right. Not only are we able to see the economic benefit from the cooperative sector itself, but I think once the fishermen are able to see and feel the appreciation for the work they do, not only monetary appreciation, but also the actual real human appreciation for people who absorb and indulge in the product that they produce. I think it's quite refreshing. So I myself, I'm gonna try that. They say that if you come to Cape Town, you must not leave before you have seafood and wine. So my boss is here. Commissioner, I didn't have wine, but definitely we'll have the fish. Definitely we'll have the fish. Our next speaker, you know, at this point, you know, as a person, we all have triggers. And the surname of the next speaker is a trigger for me. And I will say why. In my earlier life, I happened to play this sport called rugby. I think the body can tell. And there was a coach who had the same surname as the next speaker. Now, one thing that was quite daunting about this coach is that one thing he made us do very well was run. Now you can see me and running. I'm not on the same page. It led to a lot of pain. It led to a lot of agony. And one thing for sure is that the day you come to training and you see him walking on the field, you know it'll be a bad day. If you come to training, you see him sitting under the tree, then you know we're going home very soon. So our next speaker happens to come from a community of Kalk Bay. He's a 5th generation farmer. Now, if we say 5th generation, it means we at some point feel that this fishing thing runs in his veins. But he's a 5th generation farmer. But the community he comes from has more than 250 years of uninterrupted fishing. Now, that's pretty great. So, with a warm Cape Townian fishing welcome, Mr. Faiz Pukenpool. I won't say the other part that I would usually put there. Mr. Faiz Pukenpool, thank you very much.
Morning, colleagues. Very, very excited to be here with you guys and to share our story. But before we go there, I think the MC alluded to my grandfather's heritage as well in terms of sports and rugby. So my grandfather was one of the first colored Springboks, Western Province selector. He was honored by Nelson Mandela when they were released. They got their Springbok blazers. So yeah, our Pukenpool family is the history goes deep in terms of rugby. And Kalk Bay, where my grandfather's from, there's no fields. Not one rugby field, not one soccer field. There's only the beach and the mountain. And yet they still produced Springbok level rugby players. So it just shows your level of commitment that you have to that, and you can succeed if you have that that type of commitment. So before we start, I'm just going to. I'm so happy there's new guests in the room that haven't particularly heard our story yet. Very proud to present the story to you guys. I know we spoke a lot about the hopes of cooperatives, and I hope that the story that I'm going to tell you now is the reality that we're living. We're actually implementing that, and we're achieving the successes that a lot of the speakers hoped we would achieve. So I'm very, very excited that we have new stakeholders here, especially also the Western Cape government, because I'm going to speak directly to you as well in terms of our needs. So I'm gonna share our journey, and I'm gonna tell you how long it took us to get here, and then along this journey, I'm going to stop at the challenges that we had, even with CIPC, NRCS, Certificate of Acceptability, all along our journey to get here. We'll speak to that, and I think we'll tie in all of the stakeholders along this presentation, hopefully. So without any further ado, you just right-click and play slides. So my name is Faiz Pochenpoel. I'm from Cork Bay, but I represent Fisher's Secondary Cooperative. And thankfully, Oceana presents a very professional video of their work. But what we're going to see here over time, some of it is in order, some is a little bit all over the place, but you will see a similar body work, just not presented as professionally as Oceana. And also, we didn't have the benefit of funding. We had to use our own funding over the years. So I'm Faiz Pochenpoel, 5th generation fisherman, and I have a PhD in fishing community problems. So you can't tell us about any problems in the fishing community. We know all of them, right? So I represent Only Fisher's Secondary Cooperative, but I'm one of many members of the secondary cooperative that have a similar history around the province. So we started a very long time ago, I think, contributing to the small-scale policy, regulations, our inputs to that, and then workshopping. And the workshopping, I think, took a lot of our time. It's about, I would say, about 15 years myself personally, going around, finding other like-minded community leaders that believed in the small-scale model, that did the road shows, and we went across the province at our own expense. And that's why when you showed the roads with the mud, I laughed, because that's exactly what we've experienced when we've gone. So that's the journey that we took, right? We didn't wait for the department to come out and take us by the hand. Why? Because the small-scale policy was gazetted 2012, the regulations 2016. What do we need government to tell us? Everything is clear in the policy and the regulations. We knew the framework. We just had to get ourselves organized and understand this framework and understand what type of business model we need to implement in order to achieve the successes of the intention of the small-scale policy. And let me say this, the small-scale policy is the most progressive and best piece of legislation ever implemented in the history of fisheries, ever. Why? Because it seeks to allocate baskets of species, commercial species, to communities, not to individuals. And this is very important to understand. Because if we understand the history of our communities and our fishing rights, you'd be hard-pressed to find any community-owned fishing businesses today. Why? Dromedaris is the closest that you get to. Group of individual right holders forming, coming together and owning the processing facility. But those examples are very rare. And you must ask yourself why. Because in this open market system, it's about dog eat dog. I want to be the monopoly. I want to be the strongest business in the industry, and I want to dominate and maintain my position of supremacy. That is business. And that has led to displacement of fishers, hopelessness, non-access to fishing rights. All of the issues that we have now is a result of our previous system, and we need to understand this. Historically, my family's also been through it. We know you start out as a family business, and then some people, the issue with successful businesses in fishing, there are some communities that come together and work well, but then when the succession happens, when that generation passes on, everything falls away, and you don't see those businesses flourish anymore. So this policy seeks to change all of that. And this is something that a lot of our fishers today, they don't truly understand about fishing businesses. This is not a normal business like other companies. Small scale issues the right to the community. We are members of that community. We have to contribute, be active members of that, and we will earn based on our patronage, based on our value that we bring. It's about meritocracy. It's not about a social grant type of welfare organization. Although, like Abongile brilliantly put that we come from interim relief dispensation, where our fishers expected just payouts for the paper they were getting. Small scale is transitioning away from that to value chain ownership. Value chain ownership in a way. So cooperatives, yes, is great and is a problem, but co-ops, or the best type of PTY structure, without the right type of regulation and policy and willingness to enforce it, is useless. You can have the best type of company if you don't have the regulation and the support and the willingness from the department officials to implement the regulations as it clearly states. We're going to have a problem, which we currently have now. People's taking regulations as if they can pick and choose which regulations they want and ignoring the regulations that will empower us in terms of owning the value chain. So those are some of the issues. Small scale, we will own the entire value chain. And who is we? We is small scale fishers, fleckers, marketers, fish cleaners, everyone in the value chain of that resource. It's not only the actual fisher that goes out to fish. So it's the women. Very important. In our historical fishing community, the women were fundamental in us staying in Kalk Bay. Our forefathers fished through slavery, apartheid, Slum Act, Group Areas Act, Kalk Bay. So for those that don't know, this is how important fishing is to a community. Muizenberg to Simonstown was designated white area. They relocated all of the coloreds and blacks. Kalk Bay was the last community that was allowed to stay there. They couldn't relocate Kalk Bay. Why? Because there was over 100 vessels. There was a 100-year-old fishing identity and culture there that they tried to move to Mamwabizi, but they couldn't. So Kalk Bay effectively overcame the most oppressive group areas act structure in the history of our country. And that's the power of our fishing industry. And today we proudly maintain that cultural heritage, and Kalk Bay is the cradle of traditional fishing in the Cape. So protecting, understanding where we come from, our historical challenges, and then with the framework. So all of our forefathers dreamt of this opportunity of owning the value chain, but they never had the access before. Now we come across a small scale policy that says, you guys, for the next 15 years, and it's 15 years because that's the longest, right? The MLRA allows to be allocated. But it's technically lifetime rights, because when the 15 years end, we just reapply, and then it will be issued again 15 years. So not even Oceania has that type of certainty. Okay, the infrastructure and the investment gives them that, but the other commercial sectors don't have that. So in terms of investability and certainty, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. And I hope we try to convince the previous Minister Dion, engage the small scale sector, but the GNU, I think, is a little bit frightened of engagement. The small scale sector is not that difficult once you get to know us and engage with us, but you will never be able to answer our problems if you don't engage. It's impossible. And this is the problem that we're finding in the department now. They're making unilateral decisions without stakeholder engagement, and it's leading to a lot of mistrust and tension between the department. So small scale sector says we can form primary cooperatives. Those are the right holders. They apply for our basket species, but to own the value chain, you have to form secondary cooperatives or 2 or more primary cooperatives, and that is effectively our processing and our marketing entities. All right. Economies of scale makes sense. Regulations and Cooperative Act allows for multiple secondary cooperatives for various species or services or activities. So that option is available to our co-ops. At Only Fishers, though, we don't agree with that approach. We agree with the existing companies in fishing to have one mother body and subdivisions for all of our sectors, instead of having a secondary cooperative for each sector. Makes it a whole complicated a situation to manage, and in our communities, we're very limited, I would say, leaders with the capacity, with the business literacy and the business mind. So to fragment that into different secondaries for us didn't make sense. Get everyone around the table so that we can have the best group to try and run the business from there, and then share that knowledge together across the various sectors. So on this one, I just want to say that our hope in an ideal world was this. For the structuring of the Western Cape, we went around to mobilize, to tell the communities to set up regional secondary cooperatives. Every region will have a secondary cooperative. All primary cooperatives in that region will form part of that secondary. All of the processing will happen within that region. Then the province will come together for regional secondaries and form a tertiary cooperative and have more bargaining power. That's in an ideal world. We presented that. We went around to almost every single co-op in the Western Cape, and then we ended up with 15 communities that decided, let's go on this journey together. This was before small scale was even implemented. I think it was 2 years before that. We were still under interim relief, and we tried to develop the model. So anyone that understands business knows that you can't develop a business model in 1 or 2 years. It takes a long time to really implement and then fine tune. Small scale says we have to form secondary cooperatives by the 3rd year of the right grant, which is November this. So all of our primary cooperatives needed to be part of a secondary cooperative. So the regulations is very narrow, right? Some of the other presenters in terms of the Cooperative Act, they were like worried. Why is the department so forceful almost in telling you how you need to structure and even the flow of the product? And there's a very specific reason for that. So without economies of scale, you have no bargaining power. You won't get the investment you need for industrial processing. You will get none of that. It's doomed for failure if you don't have volumes guaranteed to flow through that structure. So the grant of right letter, the regulation says that all of the product, all of the wild captured marine resources harvested by your primary cooperative members must flow through the secondary cooperative. That's through the processing and the marketing and exporting and value adding. So this now, for the first time in the history of our industry, we have certainty of the flow of the product. And we're talking about hundreds of tons. I know people's interested in money. Each of our sectors is worth conservatively 100 million. Conservatively. And lionfish is worth even 4 or 5 times that, because there's unlimited species. There's a challenge now with the department with this lionfish licenses, but that we will fight till the ends of the earth. They think they can take away our licenses without even consult us, but that's a discussion for another day. But basically, the value is there. We just need the right business model, infrastructure, and support. I think over the next 3 years, to be able to sustain business and then grow it for generations to come. So, in a nutshell, Only Fishers is a singular model secondary cooperative. Wasn't designed to be regional. That is across 2-3 regions, Garden Route. We're actually trying to let the Garden Route set up a secondary co-op because they're a little bit too far for us to help them. So if they can form a secondary, we can come together on the tertiary level and then provide support. So what have we done from then till now? So community engagements, ran pilot projects. SSF, we started as an NPC, and then we were supposed to be implemented at small scale. Then there was another review of the Western Cape list. And then we realized, and this is all the learning curve, we can't operate our business model in an NPC. It's not the right platform structure to run a business-like entity. NPC is a different type of model of business. Then we ran a pilot on a PTY for that year because we didn't want to stop developing the model, because our aim was to be ready when the small-scale sector was implemented. So thankfully, we've really grown. And one of the main reasons we set up the secondary was this. Yes, it's bargaining power, but 1 year in interim relief, one of our communities, it was in Langa, one of their fishers passed away. And they never had enough money at that time of the year to even bury the fisher. So undignified way of really passing on and respecting that loved one. And that year we said that can never happen again. We developed our model in terms of our marketing partnership with existing entities, because this is all about partnership. No one can do anything alone. We work with Abalobi, we work with Oceana, them, everyone. We open to partnerships because no one market can take all of your product. It's impossible. No one buyer can do that. So we always open, but it has to be on our terms. Cooperative has to maintain autonomy, independence under the Cooperative Act, and we can have mutually beneficial profit sharing arrangements. Because one of the beautiful things about the small scale regulations that a lot of co's don't appreciate yet because they haven't been in that space where big companies want to almost get you to sign over your intellectual property. And they want to give you the 51, 49%, you know, that standard deal. Small scale regulations removes that, protects us. It says that only recognized primary cooperatives can be members of secondary cooperative. And the secondary cooperative will apply for FP right. The secondary will own it. So ownership is ring-fenced. Yes, you can have partnerships, but ownership must be maintained. But you have a situation, and this is a perfect example of clever people in the Eastern Cape, setting up secondary cooperatives, but not to the principles of the small-scale policy and regulations, offering shareholding. What did this guy do? He takes 51 shares for himself and offers the other 49 to the other 7 primary co-ops. But of the other 7 primary co-ops, one is a primary co-op of his wife. So that is the typical old mindset that we refer to in the small-scale sector. Small-scale is a new way of doing business. You have to respect the communities now, right? We are not those people that's coming to ask you for a handout. We are the second biggest lobster entity, second only to Oceana with our increase, just because we decided to come together. And this is the power of small-scale. We have over 200 tons of lobster. If we take a decision, and it's only a decision, to come together as one entity and market and process all of our lobster together, we'll be the biggest lobster entity in South Africa. Just by making one decision. It's not even asking for other resources. A decision. And that's where it comes to the community's business literacy and understanding of what the small scale is, what a cooperative is. It's a cooperation of people working together to serve our needs and our interests. But for us, it's deeper than that. It's creating generational wealth. It's creating institutions that is not affected by the minister or the manager of Department of Fisheries, because we do not care, to be honest with you, in the best of intention and respect, who is leadership. Because our communities have come through generations. We've seen ministers come and go. Our forefathers have created sectors. There were no commercial sectors before. Our forefathers created it. We are now creating small scale in terms of how we want it to be within the framework of the small scale regulations, but that addresses our needs and that will protect us and for future generations. So we've done thus far, we represent 10 primary cooperatives across the 3 regions. Like I said, Garden Route, we're leaving them for now out of this membership. And we have all of the species in the basket, from Cape Oyster, squid, which is on reserve, all of the species, right? One of our, so the next step is processing. In that's the space we were never in before. And it was a challenge for us, right? From fishers, developing the model firstly, and then now going on to the next of processing and infrastructure with limited funds. So just before we get on to the processing, funds. And so we generate about 6 million net for lobster for our group. We take as Only Fishers a 6% marketing commission. From that marketing commission, we pay our members a working capital. It's like 10 rand per kilogram of their quota. That's for them to get ready for the season, make sure their permits is applied for. Then we also pay for their burial support. For all of the members, so almost 600 members, we provide burial support free of charge to the member. It comes from the commission that Only Fishers earns. And that commission, just so that you understand, is commission we used to pay to an external exporter or marketer. We always paid. That was part of the cost of operating. So we've done our work in terms of our partnership to say, You will do this service, we will provide this local supply and this services and payments to the fishers, and we will require 6%. And from that, we've given back to our communities what they would have otherwise have lost to an external entity. So let's say the net revenue, what do we do with that? We pay everything back to the fishers after our service fee. What does the fishers do? They can take this, right? And this is our, I would say, our bottleneck and our issue. Our fishers depend on this money to live, right? Normal businesses, they can invest aggressively into infrastructure, into growing the business. We have to manage the needs of the fishers economically versus infrastructure and growth. If we could take 90% of our money into infrastructure, in the next 3 years, we'd be sustainable. But unfortunately, we can't. So we require support from Sandparks, which is amazing in terms of the SCT. Incredible. For me, they're leading the country in terms of their support for communities. Then we have SEDFA. Day to day, we together working on this, helping each other figure out issues and how to solve them. NDA. So we need funding for our infrastructure. It's not a handout that we're asking for. All businesses get access to funding. We just need grant funding. We can't pay back interest right now. We can't because we don't have that kind of margins. But if we can get grant funding for the next 3 years for our critical infrastructure, we'll be self-sufficient. We'll be sustainable. Then we'll be able to help other cooperatives, help them become sustainable again. So that's what we need. The support is there. The training is there. Everything is there. We just need now proper funding. And this, oh yes, we've given funding. We've given 500,000. When we actually need 5 million. Then what good is 500,000? For us, that's a waste of time. If our infrastructure requires this amount of funding, either you're going to give that or don't give anything. Because it doesn't serve anything. So for example, our facility that we got now in the retreat, that is another challenge that we had for the Western Cape government is finding premises, right? So we have the resources. There's no risk in terms of, will we have the volumes to be able to process? We have it. Our fishers are supplying it. It's just going through other external entities. We need access to infrastructure. Is there premises available? Is there land available? Can the Western Cape government identify hubs where small-scale fishers or secondary co-ops can access these facilities? Because we can run it. It's not a problem. Like Philippi, Pedi, that massive center there, almost 60 million invested 6 years ago. No operation happening there. Nothing. If we had to do that as small scale, we'll be labeled as failures. But Pedi, and they can do strategies and all of this stuff, and they're okay. They get a pass. We can run that facility. We can fill that facility with fish. That facility is ready. We've been there. They have everything in place. So that's the kind of discussions we need with the Western Cape government, not token discussions around, oh, we can help you with this little bit of access. No, we're done with that. We are ready to talk big business stuff. We were by IDC. They're ready to fund us 50 million. They're saying they're funding, what's his name, Sea Harvest for 50 million vessel. What we have, the volumes we have is something they can fund. But we just need to structure this right, get the right partnerships with the Western Cape, with DTI even, and then put the measures in place, but also the oversight to make sure that this succeeds. Because if you're investing that amount of money, you want to make sure you have the right people, professional people that can mentor and oversee and guide the co-ops through the incubation stage. So that's where we are now. We export ready, and I want to get to just some of the issues that we had, because you mentioned DTI and NRCS is an issue for us. So what were the challenges when we registered? Some of the challenges were, and maybe in the question and answers you can give us guidance, is the CIPC constitution. We registered. Department has a brilliant constitution, which we agree with. We signed the constitution, submitted it. CIPC, everyone signed it. CIPC then, I don't know if they rejected it, but they gave the CIPC constitution for everyone to sign again. So now technically we're using two constitutions. One where it's 10% quorums, CIPC, and departments one was 51%. So how do we reconcile that? Is there a way we can do that? So that's the one thing. And then, because we knew the secondary cooperative needed to be set up, we wanted to set up the secondary as soon as the primaries were set up. But when we registered through SEDFA, we registered 1 Cape Fishers. Did everything right. CIPC said, unfortunately, you can't register because your primary cooperatives are not operational. You have to be submit 1 year's annual returns or to CIPC. That determines operational. Now, if we knew this, we would have changed the financial year. We wouldn't have made it February. This kind of engagement, I think, was something that was missing in the beginning when co-ops were registered, where we needed all of the relevant partners there to help guide us and help structure the implementation of one. Then we could have maybe been ahead now and not had to do 1 more year of the pilot under that PT1. So that was the one thing. Then when we registered, when we were compliant, we registered again for 1 Cape Fishers. All of us the same, maybe 1 or 2 different members now. And then CIPC says, unfortunately, that name is already booked. And then we're like, CIPC, we know it's us, it's our name. Hey, it's a problem. If we're going to change that now, you're going to wait a long time and all of this. So we suggest just choose the other name. Then we went from 1 Cape Fishers to only Fishers. So that was a problem also in terms of that CIPC process. And then we got ourselves ready now to export. We rushed with this, registered with China Customs. Actually, you should have reminded me. In terms of international exposure, Department of Fisheries, super, super helpful. We went over to Guangzhou, the Fish Expo, and that was, I think, one of the best moments of my life. See what the Chinese is doing with their fish market. The way they do business, how efficient they are, but it also shows how I would say cutthroat they are in terms of driving price down. Like they don't feel anything for communities or anything like that. It's about margins. And before we jump on, I forgot to mention in terms of the small scale policy and the flow of the resources. Remember that one. All of the product must flow through the secondary. Why does South Africa not have a fish market? I'm not talking about Cape Town fish market. I'm talking about a proper fish market. We basically an island here in Cape Town, but we don't have a fish market. Why? Because you have companies that have their own rights. They're doing their own thing on their own. They'll never come together and run their product through a market like in America, like in Australia. For the first time, we have the opportunity to create a fish market. Why? Because the product must flow there. So if we have, and this is one of our big intentions, we want to have a regional fish market where restaurants, buyers, everyone can come to that centralized place that's top standard, where all of our product is trucked in every day and people can bid on our fish. And our langanas, you know, the guys with the buckies, they don't go to the landing site anymore and bid for fish there. They come to our fish market. And there we really regulate. But this opportunity was never there before this small scale policy and this regulation. And this is what our fishers don't appreciate. The tool that they have here is a revolutionary tool. And I hope that the new minister will allow us to impress upon him the opportunity that he has. He doesn't have to reinvent anything. The infrastructure is here, the opportunity is here. So we register for exporting. We go to China, we get the market, everything is ready, we register. Get our GACC registration number. Now we have to list our product. So we don't have our own processing facility yet. We're using Premier Fishing. Oceana doesn't do lobster anymore. Otherwise, we might have used them. So we have to register our lobster code because there's a new decree now in China that every species needs to be registered. Money making, 8,000 Rand per species per year. Very clever. But now we register our product and reject it because that registration number is for frozen lobster. It's the old registration number. Now we have to go through NRCS. NRCS is the only entity that registers producers and products, the factories. They are independent regulator. They have to do the registration and do it via the Beijing embassy
and the Beijing embassy then submits it to China Customs. March 2025, every day with NRCS. No response from them. We couldn't export last year because of that. And then now this year again, there's a new administrative notice. I'm gonna finish now. I'm just gonna end on here. A new administrative notice from China Customs that says by the 15th of December 2025, every single species has to be correctly registered. Otherwise, it will be rejected in China. So this is now the entire industry will be prevented from exporting if NRCS don't get this thing registered in time. So this is again one of the challenges that we have as the sector, that if we can get closer to NRCS and government, we can really solve these issues, because it's not handouts that we're asking for. Like I said, we're here to stay. We're going nowhere. Small scale sector's going nowhere. We just need the department to appreciate this opportunity and come together and work together to really implement the infrastructure that we will allow to sustain communities for generations to come. So thank you very much. And I know I went over my time, so apologies, and thank you for reminding me, Bernasha, to stop.
I must say, you do sound like Coach Buchenpoel. You speak with well authority there, and thank you very much for that. And without even taking from what you've stated in your talk, which all of it is valid, I think it was a good precursor to the next part of our program, that some of these aspects need engaging. Some of these aspects need us to be able to bang our heads against the wall and try and see how we can find a way forward. And banging against the wall won't be us pushing each other's heads, but each one pushing their own head to just see how we are able to expand not only on our mandate as organizations, but also how to expand the leverage of collaboration in being able to try and solve some of these aspects that are being raised by these fishermen. Great work, by the way. 250 years farming experience shows in your veins. And the passion obviously comes through how you speak about the sector. Now, without any random show of hands, and I think you've mentioned quite a few aspects that link to, especially us as CIPC, on the relation front, on the registration front, and obviously sometimes how understanding could be a barrier to progress. Because I don't think some of the aspects that you've mentioned could literally stop us from continuing to provide the support that we are required to do so by the Act. So by a show of hands, and I'm quite glad that we also brought, I don't want to put her on the spot, but when we have our networking session, might also be a good thing to also have a convo with. Our colleague who is currently heading the cooperatives unit is also here. And some of the aspects you are mentioning would sit directly with her unit and how we find better ways of assisting the process. So before I start picking on anyone, because I'm capable of, when you stand here, you possess a lot of power. Any show of hands regarding questions? I know the commissioner might be burning to respond on some of the aspects mentioned by Mr. Buchenpoel, especially the ones that relate to us and the ease of compliance that we always strive for. One thing the commissioner is passionate about is we have a saying in the organization, let business go on with the business of doing business. Meaning, let us do this whole compliance thing as simple as possible, as quick as possible, so that business goes on with the business of doing business. And in your case, the business of going into the sea there and coming up with all that nice produce. We've got mics. Commissioner, you? Okay.
Thank you very much. I think it's very worthwhile listening to industry, and I'm very impressed with the last presentation, because that is the reflection of what is happening on the ground. And if we, as policymakers and as implementers of policy, we have to listen to what the community is stating in this regard. Remember, cooperatives is a different type of business. So in my world, if I had to listen to an individual private company say certain things, it'll speak to an issue about maybe that private company. But when we speak to the issue of co-ops, it has a direct bearing on community. Right? The largest stakeholder within the ecosystem of the co-op and the impacts and effect that it has based on regulation, we have to listen to what that is. And therefore, the fact that we have a collaborative effort within this particular room means that we need to have further discussion based on that. Because I think that there's a lot of potential here, a massive potential. And I think that when we need to unlock that potential, it takes various stakeholders. From central government, ourselves, we're not funders, right? But we are compliance driven. And I think last speaker, myself and other speakers, we spoke about the importance of governance. We spoke about the importance of regulation. We spoke about the importance of compliance. Because without that, no matter how much funding you get, no matter how much educating of running a business that you get, no matter how much market access you get, it pivots around aspects of how do you actually run that particular business. And the cooperative model is indeed a very unique one that requires a lot of hand-holding, all right, because of the multitude of stakeholders involved in a cooperative. And therefore, I think that I'm here to listen to these challenges and therefore to put a program into action from the CIPC side to support that action that has been felt on the ground, all right, by those who are very passionate about the leverage and the scalability that cooperatives can have in unlocking, number one, issues around community poverty alleviation, transformation of the fishing industry within the Western Cape and other communities like the KZN community, and making sure that as government, national and provincial, and other entities within that system, we play a pivotal role in supporting their initiative. So I'm very happy to listen to all of that. As the last speaker was talking, I was knocking Letty on the shoulder to say, what have you done here? Don't make us the issue here. You're going to unlock what he's saying, otherwise I'm going to come to you. We are not here to create stumbling blocks. Anything must happen through the CIPC, for example. I'm only speaking from my perspective. Has to be one whereby it's done speedily with as little red tape and bureaucracy as possible, and making sure that you get on with the business of doing business. The one thing that I always say, right, and there's something that has stuck with me, and this is not to do with cooperatives, it's to do with business, right? In my previous life, I practiced as an attorney for a while. And I remember when I was just a little junior attorney, there was an old gentleman that I did my articles with, and he said to me a very strange thing. He said to me, you're a businessman first and you're an attorney second. So I'm like, what the hell does it mean by that? But once you get to the issue of understanding about that, you will realize the importance of that particular statement. So when it comes to fisheries and fishermen in any other industry, you might have the know-how, very much the know-how about how to do fishing and scalability of fishing. But if you can't market your product, you can't get your product to scale, you can't have plans about how do you grow the industry, you don't have plans about the infrastructure that's a requirement and the partnerships that go along with it. You can do as much fishing as you like. You're not going to be able to have any form of sustainability. So business acumen, compliance, all of that is vitally important, not just the know-how. And therefore, I think that's something that we also want to inculcate in your minds. We're here to support you as far as that is concerned.
Oh, thank you very much, Commissioner. I think that's pretty straightforward. And there's a lot of matching orders for some of us in that statement, so we gladly take it. But I think one of the low-hanging fruits, which also is a frustration, is this misalignment between what the constitution of a cooperative requires it to be at CIPC versus what
the fishing cooperative, that we form some sort of a stakeholder forum, but also we did talk about the CIPC also being part of that, so that we then go deeper into the issue of the misalignment of the constitution of the fishing cooperatives, but the one that came with the department, not the one that comes with CIPC, because that would be the one that is compliant and that is legal. But you find that cooperatives use most, like 90% of what they use is the one that comes from the department, which is not legal. And I'm in that space. I cannot necessarily promote that particular constitution, but you can see that the people use it there. So the aim was that we from a forum that will be able, together with the cooperatives, that will be able to look at the two constitutions and see if maybe we could even the rights, the small-scale fishing rights, it can be the one that talks to the compliance issues of the department, and maybe just beef up the CIPC constitution with that, and also just to create an enabling environment for the primaries that we could be an easily reachable, what do you call this, the supervisory committee, not to enforce ourselves to be, but at least by us formalizing ourselves, we are creating an enabling environment for them to tap into that, so we can be able to assist in that. So yes, I know I promised you that I would engage you in this session, but fortunately that session happened last week, and then we are in progress of working on that. We just have to get CIPC on board so that we deal with these issues. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for that line. We were waiting to bring CIPC on board. And the nice thing is that between you and the most relevant person is just one seat between the two of you. So it'll be at close contact for you to speak to the lady next to you, to make certain that at least the next sitting that you have, it would then include the CIPC, so that we can also leverage in that conversation, one, and two, most probably come with solutions that are beneficial, not only for us as regulators, but most importantly for the cooperatives affected. Obviously leading to the industries as well. My good sir?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, my name is Craig Love. I'm also the vice chair of this piece of hunger. I'm also actually the chairperson of the Secretary Cooperative. But I also serve as coordinator for fishing and coastal communities for the NASA. It's National Cooperative Association of the Africa. So it seems like the states are set, and we're very lucky. Specific what's really happening, but also informally what I've just actually went past for the last week as part of the GMU. Well, not part of the GMU, but actually of the G20 alone, where this industry makes part of the declaration that it can see. But also, there's a massive gap because the youth has been left out in this industry on a bigger scale. Okay, so and it all leads towards a lot of damages that are already been done. Because 15-year rights for commercials are out, youth has been left out. 15-year rights is being given to small scale, the youth has been left out. Okay, right? And based on that, there is no fishing plan by the way. It was so very long. We fought for at a small scale for our people that was left out to be part of the industry. But never were they given power to take ownership of protecting the resource. They was always been seen as around people and never been given access but by criminals for their resource that they need to own. So we've got a bit of a challenge actually on that basis. And I think it's a stage of set. But but it's not lost. Because there's enough opportunities, just in a form actually of different sectors or species in the fishing industry that our people can get access to. So we're not good. There's also actually aquaculture, which is much bigger than actually the present actually industry that we do have, which can cover for those youth. But there is no energy for support for that basis. The vehicles are also there in the form of cooperatives, which luckily for us, South African cooperative community makes part now of actually of the cooperative, the World Cooperative Community directly, which is the International Cooperative Alliance, which just became members of it. Okay? So the vehicles are there. For us actually to take this forward, but also empower communities to take ownership and build itself, because that is actually left out. Because for now, our communities are dependent on other people and not taking ownership actually to the so forth. So basically on all of that, and I think the role players like that. The role players like that. Even private sector, the rights actually of the Oceanians, full commercial. And I could ask one simple question: why is it that the department never brought the private sector on board to become mentors towards this cooperative? Why not? Okay, because they've managed to build the industry through our people. Okay, and it's easier for them to lead and guide these small cooperatives. Okay, right? And we've probably been managed and built capacity of how to run and build this industry. So the stages are set. And luckily for us, also stating that fishing industry makes part actually of the SDG of the G20, which is SDG 2, 14 and 15, which covers our environment, it covers actually the ocean economy. I'm still asking where is Patrisa's actually planned directly for small scale as well as actually small harbors and ports. Where is it? It's hanging somewhere. Okay, right. And a lot of input of this community has been given for the empowerment and take ownership of the resources itself. So perhaps actually things are there, stages are there to say. The only thing actually the government and stakeholders need to look at is how do you see operatives? Do you see them as an economic vehicle or a social vehicle? Please think of that part itself. Okay, because that's going to be very important. I'll engage actually with us. That's one. Two, what we're going to do collectively, where our kids are in the shoes of their parents at present, which became a social imbalance in our communities. Our kids are not graduating from primary school twice now. What leadership do we have? What community to going forward? Right? And based on actually that our kids and our communities are dependent on the negative economy. We do have a bad social impact directly the part itself. So, ending it off, as I stated actually directly that a lot of things have been done, a lot of things in place. There is things that are skewed because we certainly with big cooperatives and the values and the principles of it skewed. It can be aligned to it. And then actually take the opportunities that has now been done and on the basis, just take cooperative seriously. Take the cooperative community serious as a whole, because the stages are set. We're part of the World Cooperative Community. South Africa actually, cooperative community are there. They're busy being mobilized, cross-border. Please actually take us seriously and come in with support. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much for that. No, it deserves that. I just want to piggyback on one comment or the question you asked, that are cooperative economic vehicles or social vehicles? It's a very important question, but I think cooperatives in their nature enjoy a special type of existence that it is prominent in both. You know, your private companies or your normal streamlined entities are more your economic vehicles, but once you speak cooperatives, it cannot exist and flourish without having social impact. It's impossible to get that done. And that's why I believe and feel that by their mere existence and the way they are formed and ran, it's a consequence of both. Being an economic vehicle by the sake of it being a trading entity, but also being a social vehicle by the fact that it's run by communities. So we gladly take that. And I think a lot of the comments that you passionately make not only hit on regulators, but also hit on the private sector. Regulators within the room will definitely hit the call, but I think it is also on other entities that have got relations with private sector to see how we can leverage on providing some level of support or even market access to cooperatives at a small scale. So thank you very much for that. Any further comments? If there isn't, you know I can sing, right? Oh, Letty, there we go.
Thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity. My name is Letty Scotland. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. We run a campaign of annual return. But before that, I just want to say in 2023, we issue a notice in terms of calling all registered cooperatives to update contact information, because as you know, before all the cooperatives that were registered before 2021 registered with the online registration, we do not have the contact information such as the email addresses and contact numbers. So we are urging all the registered cooperatives to come and update with CIPC the contact information, as we are running the annual return program, because we are unable to reach to all those directors, members who do not have contact information. As we have heard Commissioner mentioned that we have 195,000 cooperatives registered with CIPC. However, we only have 27,000 cooperatives that have updated information. You can imagine the gap that we do not have. Our data is inaccurate in terms of contact information. So we are urging all the registered cooperatives to update the information. We have the dedicated email address, which says co-ops@cipc.co.za. Then we will update your information, and you will immediately get the email to say your information has been updated. So we urge all the stakeholders who are in the house that you, whatever cooperative data you have in your offices, just encourage those members to update their contact information. In terms of only fisheries, concern or comment or complaint, I don't know what should I call it? It's a comment. Okay. Yes, we are right. When we register online, we have the system-generated constitution that is sent to all members to sign, but currently we are using the OTP processes. We are no more uploading signature pages on the online. Yes, we also have the process of amendment where you can amend the constitution using a Co-op 6.1 form, and you send us your constitution that you want us to keep in our records, and that process is 125 times. So, but during registration, obviously, you get the system-generated constitution. Also, the section 21 allows you to keep the records in your offices. You can also keep the second constitution in your records. So it doesn't, we don't stop you to use whatever constitution you have. And you can also use it in consolidation with the one that is from CIPC. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. I think on that note, it gives us a good cookie to crumble each other on during our networking session. After this, we invite you guys to the same place that you had your morning tea to further engage. And we believe it's only through collaboration that red tape can be a non-existent thought in business. It's only through collaboration that regulation can become an efficient process. It's only through collaboration that we are able to find means and ways not only to deliver on our mandate as organizations, but to do so in a way that it enables business to be able to perform. It's only through collaboration that we are able not only to play our role as an entity, but also find ways to have social upliftment and impact where these entities that we regulate have happened to operate in. And it's with that thought that I say we will take that to our networking session after this. Can I kindly ask Venetia Mullins to come and do a vote of thanks? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fancy. And colleagues, I'm noting the time, and I really do appreciate everyone being patient and listening for 40 minutes of your time. And I'm not opening up another presentation. No, I'm just going to be doing the opening of the pre-session that we had, it's the beginning. And one thing that I think it's important for me to note is that small-scale fisheries is a very special and unique sector. And you cannot work in this space and not have a piece of your heart left behind in every community that you work in. It's a very emotional process and a very humbling process, engaging with a group of people that is like you, that's of you, that is a part of you, and it's a part of society and everything we do. So it's very difficult to always stick to a presentation. That's why whenever we speak, and I got it clearly from the commissioner, from Zola, and from Mr. Peterson and Faiz as well, that you swerve off topic because it's passionate. It's something that's very dear to your heart because you know the value in it. You know the value in the vision. And the wonderful thing about having so many different speakers or stakeholders that we all have the same vision. We all say it differently, but we're all coming back to the exact same thing about growth, development, and keeping in mind our communities and what this process means to them and what our contribution part in that is. So just in short, I really appreciate and want to thank the Commissioner, Mr. Peters, Ms. Fallerman, and apologies for spelling your name wrong on the agenda. Abongile online, I know he's late as well, he had to attend to another meeting, but for him to make himself available on the online platform, and he's kindly indicated whoever wants his details of further engagement, they're more than welcome, that I'll share that with you. Faiz, for I think your presentation at the end nicely set the tone of all the presence collectively and exactly why we are here today. And your talk spoke about the journey that all of you took together at the beginning, before there was talks of small-scale fishing, that this was already happening. That the formalization of the fishing sector was just a combination of all the efforts that were historically have been doing your lives, and for 5 generations and even beyond that as well. So partners are very valuable. Partners are important. Partners aren't just organizations, but partners are you. And as government, as NGOs, as private sector, we all need to come to the party. We all need to take ownership of the successes, but ownership of the problems so that we can find solutions towards that. And I think this is the beginning session. And thank you so much to Oceana for, if I heard you right, for volunteering for us to have another session in Oma. I think I got that. Did I? Yes. Maybe it was just me, but I heard that there was a offer for us to have a similar session like this at Oma, a bigger session. But that can be definitely something in the pipelines for next year for us to have something bigger as a continuation of these discussions. To have a session like this, but then, like we all say, having something that is tangible, that we can say, this is what happened after this engagement. So in a closing remark, once again, thank you to everyone that's here for making the time, and thank you to our MC Offense as well for just guiding the session today. But let's take the networking opportunity after this to touch base with each other. Ask the questions that you maybe didn't have a chance to ask now, but let's connect. And when we get to the bigger section next time, we will have some prior discussions around, how do we make something like that work to present on what we have come up here or the discussions that came out from here. So thank you so much from my side to all of you for being here, making the time, and for all the online colleagues and stakeholders as well. Your time is appreciated, and once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Benasha. I think with that, we'll take our networking session to the floor below. Our online participants, thank you for the comments. There's a team who will be responding to all your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.